This podcast will be a different type of story than I usually talk about. Instead of someone who is missing, today we're going to talk about a vicious double murder during the corruption-plagued 1970s Chicago and two determined prosecutors who wanted justice. Joining us to tell the story is one of those prosecutors who has lived the type of life that you usually only hear about in the movies. Let's talk about the murders on Sheridan Road. Before we get into this story, I want to introduce my guest on this podcast. He has lived and breathed this case and has even written a book about it and will give his first-hand account of the events. He'll also talk about his early life, which is fascinating, and what he has learned from his life experiences. I want to note that he has chosen to change the names of the two victims in this case out of respect for their family, so we'll be referring to them by the fictitious names that were used in the book. Welcome to the podcast, author and former prosecutor, Greg Owens. Okay, today on our podcast, we have former prosecutor Greg Owen. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here and can't wait to have a conversation.
Yeah, so let's get right into your early years and tell the audience what you did early on in your teens and 20s.
Sure. Well, I was one of three boys in my family, the oldest, and my mother had bought a piano when I was about 9, and she decided that I'm going to be the one to take piano lessons, which I didn't want to. So for 3 years, I went through that, and then finally, that was it. I was done. And then a couple of years after that, I saw the Beatles on television, and I called my friend Rich, who had a guitar. I went and bought a little organ, and we started a band. And after that band, we just kept going. The band started to get pretty big. We had records out. So I was 16. I was in high school. I was touring. I went out, played all through high school. Then I went to college.
What were the names of some of these bands?
Well, the first band that we had some records out, we played with The Doors, opened for Janis Joplin, The Who, Buffalo Street. I mean, a lot of big bands we were for. We were called the Shady Days. That's when I was like 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
And then I ended up being the keyboard player in a band called The American Breed. And we have a song called Bend Me, Shape Me, Any Way You Want Me.
Oh, yeah.
It was sold 3 million copies, so that was pretty big. And then we all got tired of being what we thought was a bubblegum band, so the band broke up. And my friend Bill and I, am the guitar player, we started a new band called Jericho. At the same time, I wasn't going to be drafted because my lottery number was high, so there was a suggestion that I take law classes, which I thought was the dumbest thing I ever heard. But 2 weeks, because we had been taking, which are young musicians in those days, you'd sign contracts, you didn't even know what we were signing. You were just signing them,
Yeah.
18, 19. So we had been taken advantage of pretty bad, really taken advantage of. So I said, okay, fine, I'll take some law classes. I ended up enrolling in law school while I was in the band. I played music all through law school. The dean let me go to school every other semester, so we would tour half the year. Wow. And then when I was in school, we would just play it, with Chicago, Milwaukee, so we could still be in school. So that's what I did. I went through all college, law school, played in the band. Then toward the end of my law school career, still had hair on my shoulders, braids, the whole bit. I had a relationship with somebody that went really backwards. It really bothered me. I was starting to question my own talent because I couldn't sing. So as a keyboard player, you're sort of dependent on other people. If you can't sing, I could write songs.
Yeah.
And the more it started to get to me. And one day I was walking down the stairway at my law school, and there was a bulletin board just full of job opportunities. There were a lot of jobs for lawyers in those days. But at the far top in the right-hand corner was a 4x6 card. I had never looked at that board. I had no interest in it for years. But it said, Cook County State's Attorney's Office to be in room 204. It would have been from when it was the next day, to interview for possible interns and possible assistant state's attorneys, potential.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the thing, and when I did, I read it, and something inside me literally talked to me. And I had never had that happen. I was not into all that, and it did. And it said, you better do that, you better do that. better do that or something might happen. And then it did it twice. I'm looking around, and there's nobody talking. There's nobody around me. I mean, it was sort of scary, but it was very compelling. Then when it did it the third time, that was it. This is the true story. I walked directly to a payphone, because that's all we had in those days. Got my mother, called her. I said, Mom, would you do me a favor? She said, sure, son. I said, call that guy that cuts your hair. See if you can cut my hair tonight.
Oh, wow.
She goes, she says, are you okay? Are you okay? She thought I was crazy. I said, no, Mom, it's something I got to do. So I got home from school. About 7 o'clock, 6:30 or so, I got my hair cut from my shoulders right just below like above my ears. I mean, I was a totally different person. She took me to the mall, Schaumburg, Woodfield Mall, bought me a suit because I need to go for this interview. The next day I show up for the interview. I have no idea what an assistant state's attorney does. The guy's talking to me. I knew how to talk. And he says to me, well, it's your lucky day, Greg, because there's been a new special rule enacted by the Supreme Court that said senior law students, if have the right grades and you're approved by a governmental agency, you can try cases just like you're a real lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I look at him, I go, okay. I mean, I have no clue. He says, can you start Monday?
Wow.
I said, oh, okay. So Monday I show up and I'm interviewed by somebody else. Bill Kunkel was his name. And he said to me, could you go, are you ready to go over to a courtroom right now? It's like 1 o'clock. I said, I guess. So I get on a bus. He tells me where it is. I've never been there before. Of course, I said I had. I get to this courthouse. Now, I'm an intern, right? I was still a student. And I walked in. It was a traffic court building. But there was a certain one courtroom in that building that was called the jury call. So anywhere in Chicago, if a person had a misdemeanor case and they demanded a jury, they were sent to this place called Branch 46.
Oh, okay.
So I get to the door. There's people standing in line. I mean, it was like, I thought they were giving something away. It was so crowded. I walked in, and I got to tell you something, Heather. I felt like I had been in a spaceship and had landed in a foreign planet.
Wow.
I mean, I had been on stage the night before. I was still in the band, and here I am now. It smelled like hot dogs. People were smoking. People were talking real loud, and there was a trial going on. It was pandemonium.
Wow.
I'm like, I think, what have I got myself into, man? This might have been a big mistake. I walk up, I introduce myself to one of the real prosecutors. He hands me a stack of papers and says, start calling all these names out. I go, what do you mean? He goes, like this. And he yells. Now, there's a judge on the bench with the trial. He's just yelling for people, for victims. So I started yelling. About 2 weeks, I would show up there every day at about 1 o'clock till 4:30, every 5 days a week. And then I started to really like it. I mean,
yeah.
They let me try cases I never did that before.
Into the frying pan, right?
Yeah, I mean, and what was another thing that's sort of, I don't know if you call it ironic, but the courtroom that I was assigned to, my first assignment, not even a lawyer yet, ended up being considered the most corrupt courtroom in Cook County.
Oh, wow.
I mean, what was called the jury court, right? There was never, ever a jury. Ever.
Oh.
It was just, there was a whole corruption scheme that was going on. But I didn't know. I'm some kid from the suburbs. I'm like, duh. Yeah. But, man, after a while, I figured it out. It was bad, too. Real bad. So I stayed there about 6 months, and then I took the bar exam. I passed, and they hired me immediately and put me in a starting position, which was about 2 years ahead of where most young prosecutors start, because I had all that experience.
Yeah.
So by the time I was in the state's attorney's office, about 11 months, I was the 26th of California, which is the criminal courts building in Chicago, where all the big murder cases, everything, and I was assigned to a courtroom as a prosecutor. And I began trying jury trials, I would say 2 weeks after I got there.
Oh, wow.
It was just, you talk about learning under fire.
Yeah.
But you had somebody else in the courtroom who was more experienced. They sort of guided you. We always tried cases as teams. So before you know it, in about 3.5 years, I had tried 40 jury trials, no murders. And then by the time I retired, which was 3 years later, or 3.5, I had tried 64 jury trials, 62 were murder cases. So Yeah, it was nonstop. I mean, we were on trial all the time. There was so much crime. So yeah, I learned. By age 29, 30, I'd already tried 40 murder jury trials. So
Wow.
I have a lot of experience.
So how many years have you been practicing when you've heard about this case that we're going to talk about today?
I have been a real lawyer for 3.5 years.
Okay. So tell us about this
Yeah.
case.
Well, this is a a sad, but also, I don't want to say it was sad, but it was also very inspiring. So what it was about is this: the case is called People versus Mischweiger. It's a double murder case that had taken place on March 2nd, 1976 in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm taking the bar exam the same morning the young man and his girlfriend's bodies were found by the young man's father.
Hmm.
So as he's finding his murders, I'm taking the bar exam.
Wow.
Well, I'm finished with the bar exam, and I'm ready. I'm at home, and I'm packing my clothes because I'm going to L.A. to be with the band I used to be in because they're going to be starting an album. And it takes 2 months to get your results for the bar exam. So
Oh, wow.
why not? I had nothing else to do. So
Mm-hmm.
that's all I could think about is going to L.A. So as I'm packing my bag that same day now, before I walk in, I see a newspaper truck delivering newspapers to the paper boxes. And I happened to notice the front page that was sliding into that glass front of the old paper boxes. And it said, contractor, actress found slain. And I saw the column on the right. It was the headline, big headline. I had no change in my pocket, so I didn't get one. But I go in the house, like I said, I was packing my clothes. Half an hour later, I get a call from my brother. He goes, Brother Jay. He says, Greg, man, I'm so bummed out. I go, what's up, Jay? He goes, man, my friend and his girlfriend got murdered. I go, what friend? He tells me the name. I had never met him, didn't know who he was. And then I said, well, where did he get murdered? He goes, right down. I was living in the city downtown. He said, near where you live. I go, what? I said, wait a second. Was your friend a contractor? Well, his father is. He works for him. Oh, I said, wait. Was his girlfriend? Yeah, the actress. She says, yes. She just graduated from acting school. I said, man, I just saw the headline in the newspaper, the late edition. He goes, yeah, my friend, man. I go, oh, I'm so sorry. Well, anyway, I go to LA, and that's the end of it, right? 3.5 years later, I've already been trying case after case. My brother calls me in November of '79. He goes, Greg, could you do a favor for me? I said, sure. He says, remember my friend's murder case? I go, well, not really, sort of. I don't really know. He said, well, your office, the state's attorney's office, called the victim's family, who my brother was friends with, and said they're going to drop the case because the only witness to the case and was going to take the fifth, remain silent because there was a drug deal involved. And he now figured if the case didn't work out, they'd go after him. So he won't testify. You have no fingerprints. There was no DNA at the time. Nothing. Not one piece of evidence except for this little witness. He said, and then he says to me, I said, Jay, that's impossible. We don't drop from the murder cases. We don't just let them go. He goes, that's what they said. I said, well, I'll look into it. So I made a couple phone calls, and I found out that case was still in the system, but it was assigned to a court facility where never were murder cases, never assigned, which was very strange. I mean,
Yeah.
what's it doing over there, So I said, okay, so I get a cab, and I take a ride from 26th to cab downtown. It was about a 15-minute ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to it's called the Daly Center. The Daly Center is like where all the, divorce, personal injury, civil cases.
Yeah.
The state attorneys happened to have 4 or 5 courtrooms, but they were for stuff like felony shoplifting, not violent crimes. So I go up to the floor where the office is on, and there's nobody around. It's like 2:30. Finally, I see somebody I know, and I tell them, well, I want to find out about this case. And he says, what case? I tell him the name of this defendant. He looks me right in the eye. And I knew this guy. He said, Greg, I'm going to give you some advice. I wouldn't touch that case with a 10-foot pole. He said, that case is poison. People have been bribed. The evidence, they did recover some evidence at the offender's home. on a search warrant. Like something he was wearing, which was described by the witness. No blood or anything like that, but there's a few things. So I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, somebody broke into the locker and stole it all from the sheriff's office. I go, you kid, what? And he goes, he told me the name of the judge and who the lawyers are. And I go, oh, man. The judge was known to be anti-state and possibly, willing to help out a friend for a favor.
Yeah.
Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
So I said, could I see the file? Could I just look at it? He goes to the office where the case was supposed to be. The prosecutors that handled the case, that's where they were. He went to the file drawers. He couldn't find it. And then after a while, he gets on his hands and knees. He looks under a desk, and he finds it under a desk. You talk about burying a case.
Wow.
So he hands it to me. I look at it. Now, you got to understand something. At this time, I've been a prosecutor for almost 4 years. The corruption was so bad in our court system, it was disgusting. It made you sick. And we saw it every day happening. But what can we do about it, right? I mean, I know that this is happening, but I'm not seeing somebody putting money in a judge's hand. I just know the kind of cases that were being found not guilty or just thrown out were absurd. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the same group of lawyers always represented all these people. So we already had this overriding disgust for the corruption we had to deal with. So I take the file and I look at it, and I take out the picture of the offender. He was a 24-year-old kid from the North Shore of Chicago, a millionaire, came from a great family, well known, and going to a great school. Guy had everything going for him, and he stabbed 2 of his friends to death.
Wow!
And as I look at, I knew what was going on. I mean, it had been signed in that court building. Now the other thing too is this. What would you think somebody stabs 2 people to death, that a judge would give them a bond? We could walk around waiting free? Yeah. This guy had a bond that was so low. And that was another thing. The judge that gave him that bond years later went to prison for some other cases, federal prison, judicial corruption. Wow. So, I mean, the whole thing, and the judge where his case was assigned in that Daily Center was best friends with his lawyer. I mean, come on, So it bothered me so much that these 2 people were murdered, and this guy thought he was in his escape. And I said, I'm done with this. I can do something about it. So I called my trial partner. I said, this case is really bad, but at least we'll give these victims a voice. So I called my boss. I said, I want to take this case. They thought we were nuts because it was such a bad case. So we took it. We got it transferred out of that court building back to 26th Street, California, where we would get a jury trial, which we ended up getting. But what I had to do what we both had to do to resurrect that case, that's the story. I mean, everybody knew who killed people within 3 or 4 days. He was arrested. Yeah. So it's not one of these books where, well, who did it? It's like, how did it almost disappear? And how did these 2 guys actually get in front of a jury and win and to convict them? That's the story. And we talk about the prosecution side. A lot of true crime books are written by defense attorneys or people that are more looking at it from a defense side, or just people that looked at the case and they're not lawyers. Well, this is written by the prosecutor who actually handled the case, saw all the things, what he went through, my partner, to actually bring this case to justice. So and we're giving you insights as to how prosecutors prepare a case, which you don't really hear very often. Yeah. So that's the basis of the case, And I think, readers are going to walk away realizing that, people in your life, one conversation, one decision, one seemingly insignificant event can change the course of an entire life. That's what happened to me. Here, my brother knows the guy that got murdered that I didn't know. 4 years later, I'm the prosecutor of that case.
Yeah, so it was 4 years between the crime and when the trial started. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, yes.
So out on bond for 4 years.
Yep, going to work, living his life with his family. Yeah. And these other 2 people, their families don't have them anymore.
Yeah. So then how did the trial go? I mean, about how long did it last, the trial?
Only see in Chicago, Cook County, unlike what you see in some trials in Los Angeles, the average murder trial takes 7 days. That's it.
Wow.
I mean, if you pick a jury and then 7 days later, you're done.
Yeah.
So it took exactly a week from
Wow.
start to finish. Because remember, we didn't have any expert testimony. We had no blood evidence. There was no cameras in those days. No DNA. There was no fingerprints found, but nothing.
You just
So
had one
we don't have
witness, correct?
That's it. One witness, and he was corroborated only because he's the eyewitness. Well, there was not big, but a small drug transaction, and he was there. So he was afraid. So when he saw the victim get stabbed by this guy, he took off and left the girl alone. I mean, he was terrified that another rich kid, that he'd get charged, he'd be arrested for drugs or something. So he didn't come forward to the police. No way. They had to find him.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's what they had, and he had nothing more than him. After he had witnessed his first murder, he got in his new Porsche and he drove downtown where his girlfriend was working at this nice hotel in Chicago called the Ritz. He went up to where she was working. He was like hyperventilating, and he told her what just happened. Well, she said, "We got to call the police." So they get on the phone. They call the police. The operator, the police person, answers, and he tells him the story. And the witness, Hedrick, his name was, he and his girlfriend decided they're going to drive back to the crime scene. Well, the operator who took the call thought it was a prank, so he didn't call any police. He didn't call anybody. Just threw the message in the garbage. So these two people might have survived because they were stabbed, but there was large pools of blood, which meant their heart was pounding for a long time.
Yeah, wow.
So he go back up to the crime scene. There's nobody there. Now he's really afraid, really scared.
Yeah.
He called the police and nobody's there. So that's what we had. Him and his girlfriend, who basically just corroborated that he did show up at her work, and they did call the police, and they did go back. And that was it. And that guy, when I first met him, he had a lawyer, he was not going to testify. He was taking the fifth, and that was it. And then he had no case. So I had to spend a good 2 months convincing him that he should do the right thing. And
oh, wow.
Did. Yeah.
But you eventually did convince him to testify?
Oh, yeah. Yep. He did a good job. Did a real good job.
So then the trial, what was the outcome of this trial?
I was found he had 3 of the best defense attorneys I think had ever been assembled in Chicago at the time.
Wow.
One of them had represented a mob figure, Sam Giancana, as well as Jimmy Hoffa.
Wow.
Another female attorney, and the week the trial started was put a front cover of People magazine at the time saying one of the top 5 female criminal lawyers in America, and another lawyer who was a well-known defense attorney. So he had a whole his defense team had combined about 98 years of experience. My partner and I combined had 9. So,
yeah.
So I think they underestimated us, and the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours.
Wow. And what was his sentence?
He got 30 to 40 years, which we've wondered who talked to that judge, because that's a pretty.
Yeah.
Normally that's a death penalty case, but the year he committed the case, the death penalty in Illinois was ruled unconstitutional and it was reinstated. But so to get that's a real low sentence.
Yeah. So is that the end of this story? The trial and the conviction?
Yeah. But the story is about how we put it together.
Yeah.
It tells in detail the investigation, how the police, what went down to actually find how this happened.
Yeah.
It was just circumstances that were unbelievable that took place. I mean, it's hard for me to believe, but I was there.
Yeah. Did he serve out his entire sentence?
No. He served about, 8-9 years maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people got connections.
Yeah.
Say.
Yeah.
Things never change in Chicago sometimes.
And you talked about all the corruption. Now, I'd like for you to talk about Operation Greylord.
Sure.
and what you know about
Well,
that.
yeah, I know quite a bit about it. As a matter of fact, in the book, uh, it happened to occur right at the time Mike and I had just taken the case, and between the time we took the case in November, the case was tried in May. So at that time, I'm trying other cases too, but during that time, my partner Mike had been promoted to the position of supervisor of the preliminary hearing courts for murder and rape. So what happened was one day he calls me up and he says, "You need to come over to my office." I go, "Why?" He said, "Don't ask any questions. Just get over here." So I do. I get to his office. He opens the door a little bit and he it's up for me not to say anything. So then I come in. They're sitting on the couch is a young man we knew. His name is Terry Hake. Terry was a couple years behind me and maybe 3 years behind Mike, but he worked for Mike in the preliminary. That's when he had been promoted to the position of being a prosecutor in the preliminary hearing courts for murder and rape. So he's got his hands in his head and he's like almost crying. I'm like, man, I sit down next to him. I go, and we knew him. And I said, "Terry, what's up, man? What's up?" He goes, "Man, I just can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore." He said, "I never wanted to do this. I wanted to be an FBI agent. My father said I should be a lawyer." Now, I'm not putting it together like, what's going on here? And he says, "I can't take the slime balls, the crooks, the corruption." I mean, he was just, because he was working in a courtroom at that time called, like I said, Branch 66, where they handled murder and rapes. That judge was a judge named Maurice Pompey. He had a bailiff whose name is Lucius Robinson. Now, Lucius also, at part-time, was a bodyguard for Muhammad Ali.
Oh,
What was
wow.
going on in that courtroom was this. Corrupt lawyers would show up, they'd pass a bribe to Lucius, and the judge would find their client that there was no probable cause to dismiss the case. And we'd have to go to the grand jury and indict it. So he was taking money on murder cases, like all the time. Now, I had worked in that same courtroom 4 years before, and we all knew what was going on. And the way it worked was this. There was a jury box in the courtroom, but because it was preliminary hearings, there was never a jury. It just happened to be there. Well, when a bribe was passed to Lucius, for the judge to know, Lucius would sit in that jury box while the hearing was taking place. So we all knew if Lucius was in the jury box, we're going to lose the case. I mean, it was so, that's how bad it was. It was that obvious. So we would say, is Lucius in the box? Somebody would walk in and say, "Well, what's the next case?" "I don't know, man. I don't know. Is Lucius going to be in the box?" Because we knew that we'd lose. So Terry, he just couldn't take it. I mean, he had gone through the misdemeanor courts with all the judges taking bribes, and now we're in this kind of a courtroom, and he lost it. I mean, and so I'm like, "Oh my God, Terry." And so I say to Mike, my partner, I go, "Why don't we call one of our bosses?" So we did. Mike walked them over to Mike Ficaro and Bill Conk were two of our bosses at the time, to their office. And we had no idea now what happened after that. Terry just disappeared.
Oh, wow.
About 3 months. And what had happened was this. Our two main bosses called the FBI and said to them in the U.S. Attorney's Office, "We've got a young prosecutor who's so distraught, blah, blah, blah." And they came up with the idea for Terry to become an undercover mole, an undercover agent, to become an FBI agent and wear a wire and still be a lawyer and start becoming a crooked lawyer and get all these other lawyers to say stuff to him on tape. And he had judges he was recording. This went on for 4 years.
Wow.
4 years.
Yeah.
He was wearing a wire. Now, I knew him real well. I mean, of course, I've seen him since. But we all started to hate him, see, because here he is all upset about the corruption. And then a few months later, he's hanging with all these crooked lawyers, hanging with the judges, laughing, having a good time. And I'm like, I almost tried to hit him once because I was so upset when I saw him, to go from one extreme where he was almost crying and, "Oh, you got to help me." And now he's out doing this and working with crooked lawyers and crooked judges. And, it was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometime later it gets exposed. And here he was, an FBI agent.
Oh,
Wearing a
wow.
wire all the time. Yeah.
Now, speaking of corruption, now tell us about something that happened the night before your closing argument of this trial.
Sure. Like I said, it was so blatant. So the last day of the case, we were done. I go back to the office. I think we got done about 4:30 or 5. And there on my desk is about 4 or 5 of those pink notes you got to call at your secretary. And they're all the same, from the same person.
Mm-hmm.
I was urgent. So I pick up my phone, I call this person, and he's emphatic. I got to see you. I said, listen, I said, I can't see you. I mean, I'm doing my closing argument tomorrow. I have no time for this. He goes, no, it's important. It'll make a difference in this and that in your case. I'm like, oh, man. So I meet him at a little pizza place in Chicago. I walk, the place is pretty crowded, and he's in a little booth, and he's greeting me, and he's got a duffel bag on the seat next to him where we're sitting. I'm sitting across from him. And he starts telling me, he's first with the pleasantries. Oh, how you doing? How's Mike? All this and that. So finally, we get down to the bottom line, and he says, Greg, I got to tell you something, man. You're prosecuting the wrong guy. I'm thinking, where's this coming from? Now, he had been a prosecutor, so I knew him. In fact, I went to law school with him. So, but I wasn't real close friends. So that's another thing I thought was unusual. Here he is. I don't hang with him, and he's making this big thing for me to see him. So as we're sitting there, he says to me, I'm telling you something. I know these people. I know the family of this Langer family, he says. And he didn't do it. Your witness did it. I'm like, okay, that's it. We're done. Done talking. I don't want to hear any more of this. He goes, Greg, I'm serious. He's real emphatic. And then he says, okay, let me tell you something else. He said, his family are very generous people. And they really show their generosity to people who do the right thing and do the right thing for them. And I'm thinking, what is this? He takes that duffel bag, he unzips it, turns it sideways so I could see what was in it. And there were $100 bills and wrappers. The thing was just packed.
Wow.
And he's showing this money, and he said to me, there's $50,000 in here. It's yours. All they ask is you tone down your closing argument. See, wow. I was known for being really good at closing arguments. That was my hallmark. So they knew that I'd get up there and I tried to just do whatever I could, to make sure he was convicted for what he did. And I looked him right in the eye of that guy and said, well, first of all, I uttered an expletive. And then I said, don't you ever talk to me again as long as you live, and don't go near me if you see me. I walked out the door. I went to a payphone, called my partner. Then I went to his house. Then we called our supervisor, told him, and we were just told, we'll take care of it after the trial. So I got up there and did a closing argument. And you know what really bothered me the most? I mean, I know this may sound strange to people, but when he offered me that money, of course it's a crime right out in itself, but I felt so insulted that he even thought there was a chance I would take it.
Yeah.
I mean, that really upset me. To think that he thought I was the kind of person. I think they thought because it was so much money that it was almost, you couldn't pass it up. I mean, if you were a crook. And because, you see, this corruption was so prevalent, but I never heard of one person from the state's attorney's office was ever involved in anything. So for him to do this, these people are really desperate now. This is the eve of the closing argument. They're starting to try to pay people off. Yeah. So I dealt with it firsthand.
Wow.
Right up close. Yep.
Now, I know that he was convicted, but did the killer, did he ever actually confess after the fact and admit that he had done it?
Well, no. Yes and no. Okay, so here's what happened. So after he's convicted, they appealed the case.
Yeah.
And the appellate court ruled that he didn't get a fair trial because some rulings that the judge had made, and the fact that we had questioning witnesses, and the defense attorneys kept objecting, and the judge was sustaining objections. I think he was confused, and the questions were not the kind of questions where they should have been sustained. And they really asked the question a different way, and this went on, and they were doing it just to rattle us. So they said the prosecutors made statements or asked questions such a way that the defendant didn't get a fair trial. So anyway, so they sent it back to go to trial again. Well, this time the guy didn't want to go against us, so he pled guilty. And in pleading guilty, he had to admit that he did it. So he did. He ended up admitting that he killed the people.
Did he ever give a reason?
No. I mean, to this very day, as I sit here right now, there has never been a reason. These people were his friends.
Yeah.
He was with them the day before in an airplane. I mean, and this, I mean, and he stabbed the guy, Gio, in front of this witness. And see, the witness didn't know the bad guy. He didn't know the defendant. He had never seen him before.
Yeah.
So there was no way to figure out why would he do this. And there was somebody there. I mean, and he still did it.
Wow.
So that's something that stayed with me all my life. Is I've never understood why he did it. Made no sense. These people were all wealthy.
Yeah.
All of them.
So how long did you go on to practice, before you stopped being a prosecutor?
I was at the state's attorney's office for, 9 years altogether with the internship.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into private practice as a defense lawyer, and I did real well, but I just didn't like it. I just didn't transition well from prosecuting people and then representing them, trying to get them off.
Yeah.
So I did that for about another 10 years or so, 10, 12 years. And then I got into totally unrelated businesses, and glad I did.
And now your current career is as an author, correct?
Yep, yes, absolutely.
So you've written the book about this case is called Convergence. And what made you decide to name it that?
Well, because of all the events that came together, it's like coincidences. I mean, I prosecuted the case. I saw the newspaper headline. My brother's a friend of the victim. I end up with the case. I mean, and so many other things. For example, this is something that was pretty interesting. So we're getting ready to go to trial in about a month, 6 weeks. And we can't, not only can we not know the motive, we can't even link the killer with the victims. There's not one person that we've questioned ever saw them together. That's not good either. I mean, we know that the witness knows the victim. Now the witness is saying he never saw the defendant, and so we were going to go to trial with no way to link these people beforehand or anything. So that was what we were stuck with. So 6 weeks before, so I'm going through this case file where I was organized everything just perfectly. I pulled out a folder, and I didn't realize it, but stuck on the bottom of the folder, on the bottom, it was a sticky note. So I take it off, and I'm looking at it, and it says, Bill Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. And then it said pilot. Then it had TWD Aviation and a phone number. Well, I got that in my hand. And as I'm looking at that note, that second, one of my investigators walks up behind me, looks over my shoulder and says, oh, TWD Aviation. I went to high school with the owner. I'm like, what? What? He goes, yeah. I said, I don't know what this means. He goes, let's take a ride. So we get in the squad car. We go down to this TWD Aviation at Midway Airport. We get there, it's a big hangar. They charter planes and do lessons, teach flying. So we go inside and we find his friend that he hasn't seen since high school. And so we're talking to the guy, and Joe Hine was the police officer. He says, well, this is Grego, and he's an assistant. He's trying this case, and he found I had the sticky note with me, and I showed it to him. And he goes, oh, yeah, I know Bill Wright. And I'm like, oh, my God. Okay. He goes, what's this all about? So I tell him. He goes, well, just a second. He says, when did this happen? I said, we think March 1st, 2nd, right around that time. So he goes to a file cabinet. Now, when you charter a plane, you have to give the people that you're chartering it from, like an itinerary and a manifest, like who's on the plane, how much do they weigh, what's their name. So he goes through these file cabinets, and he pulls out a file under Bill Wright's flights, itineraries, and he pulls out February 28th. He puts it on the desk. He goes, well, here, which would have been a day or two before. He said, Bill flew a plane to Lake Geneva. It was hired by Gio Messina, and in the plane was a woman named Tinker Moore and Mitchell Weiner, the defendant.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's the first time we had any kind of anything that these people knew each other.
Wow.
So I say to him, oh my God. He says, yeah, but I don't think he's going to help you out too much. I go, why? He said, well, because, I said, is he dead? No. He's in prison. For what? He said he became a drug smuggler. He was flying planes from Colombia and South America and bringing them up here with dope loaded. I said, oh, man. He said he crashed. He was flying 7 tons of pot and 100 pounds of cocaine from Guatemala, and he crashed in Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
And he was by himself. Well, he escaped. He got arrested, and they had him in custody. He was going to get life. So I'm thinking, oh, man. I called Mike. I go, we probably should just go see the guy. Who knows what he knows? So we do. We get a flight. We go down to a little city in eastern Tennessee, go to the sheriff's there, and he says, oh, you boys from Chicago? I say, yeah. He says, do you want to go see that guy? I go, yeah, I want to see the guy in the jail. So we go over there, and there he is. He walks up to we approach him, and he's in the cell, and he says, I said what my name was, why I was there, and he got real quiet, and he got sad, and I'm thinking, what's this guy, what's he talking? I said, we just want to know if you know. Yeah, I know all about this case. I go, you do? He said, yes, I do. He said, I remember flying them, and I was something I should have done, and I didn't, and I felt bad ever since. Something. What is he talking about? He says, well, here's what happened. Gio, his girlfriend, and this guy Mitch, I flew them to Lake Geneva. Gio was going to buy some drugs or something from somebody, and the guy was involved too, this Mitchell. So when we landed, I taxied the plane up to where there was a car waiting. Gio got out, and his girlfriend and this Mitchell sat in the back. Once he got out, they got out of the plane. They started making out.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like big time.
Wow.
Like, oh my gosh, and he's thinking, I should tell Gio what's going on here, but we didn't. And 2 days later, he was killed. So who knows if that was a part of it?
Yeah.
So I said, oh my, I couldn't believe it. I go, I got to go talk to the sheriff. So we go back down to the sheriff's office. And he says, so that boy help you out? I said, oh, could he help us out? And I told him what it was all about, what he said. So we're standing up. He's sitting at a desk. He gets on his phone. He makes a call. Somebody answers. We don't know, but he says something like, hey, Mabel, is my cousin there? And he goes, I know he's busy. So we're just standing. We don't even know who's calling. So somebody apparently gets on the phone. He goes, before I tell you what these 2 boys from Chicago want, I got a bone to pick with you. He goes, you didn't show up at the family reunion last summer? My wife made your favorite dish. You didn't even call and tell us you weren't showing up. And he goes, I know you're busy. Now, we're only hearing one side. So he goes, well, I got these 2 boys from Chicago, blah, 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 blah. He goes, well, you want to talk to them? So, okay. So he goes to hand the phone to my partner. My partner is like, I'm not trying to pick it up. I don't even know who that is. So I'm right next to him. So I take the phone. I put it up to Mayor, and I said, hello, this is Greg Owen. I'm an assistant state's attorney from Cook County, Chicago, Illinois. He goes, well, hello, Greg. This is the governor of the great state of Tennessee.
Wow.
His cousin was the governor of Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
I told the governor the circumstances and what. Now he says, okay, well, hold on a second. I give the phone back to the sheriff. Then he gives it back to me, and he goes, here's what we're going to do. We're going to drop them charges down to a small amount. And you only get 2 years. He's already served 9 months. So by the time, and he'll get day for day credit, by the time he's done testifying, he'll be free.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. I mean, that's a convergence. Finding a note, ends up going to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then this happens, and the governor's his cousin. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Second cousin. Yeah. So,
wow.
And that guy, they flew him up there just like he said. They got him the witness stand and testified just exactly like I just said.
Wow.
So it was a big piece of the case, and there was, within the book, there's things that are even beyond that you think could never happen, and they're all documented proof. Yeah. And they all came together, that one, it changed the course of a lot of people's lives. So, that's the whole point. I mean, we took a case that everything that could go on already had. The evidence disappeared. Eyewitness refused to testify. There have been some decisions made by judges that almost destroyed the case. you know,
Wow.
and the guy's walking around for 4 years. And our feeling was, I don't care. You know,
Yeah.
obstacles don't have to mean defeat. You know, sometimes you have to think, work harder, think differently, and refuse to quit. And we
Yeah.
just refused to quit. So,
Yeah,
everybody else wanted to let the thing go.
and the book goes into big detail about the trial and all the ins and outs. So, what is something that TV and movies get completely wrong about trials, do you think?
Well, the biggest thing that they leave out, which is one of the most compelling things, is what goes on in sidebars. We've
Mm-hmm.
all watched, or many people have watched these trials on TV. And every time there's a sidebar, the camera's just looking at a picture on a wall or a fan turning, and you don't know what's really going on there. What are they saying to each other? And like we always said, the most interesting part of a case is the sidebars, but you never get to
Well,
hear them. That's where the stuff is really told. I mean, that's when the battles take place, and where
well,
judges make decisions. And I mean, it gets very heated because you're not in front of the jury. So, when we would do sidebars, we would just stand next to the judge's bench. We'd go into his chambers,
yeah.
and then there'd be a court reporter would come in, the whole bit. I mean, in those sidebars, like in our story, are just unbelievable. And I
Well,
think the other thing is, I don't think the average person, the TV doesn't really display the level of strategy and tactics that are employed in trying the murder case as a prosecutor. I mean, it gets to the point where you stand a certain place in the court when you ask questions of a certain witness, and you may stand somewhere different. And there's a reason why you do that. There's a reason why you call witnesses in a certain order, even at what time of the day, because this is all thought out. So,
mm-hmm.
I mean, people don't appreciate the level of preparation, and that's another big thing. Preparing witnesses. I mean, you're a witness in a murder case. You've never done that before. You got to walk into a courtroom full of people, 12 people staring at you. It's like a foreign environment. And so we would have to prepare witnesses for that encounter, because when they get cross-examined, it's not fun. We have to do practice cross-examination. Say, listen, we're going to ask you questions. We're going to be real nice. Well, when the defense attorney gets up there, he's going to try to take out your throat. So here's how it's going to be. And we would sort of act out. One of us, my partner and I, would be the cross-examiner, defense attorney. So when they got up there, they were sort of used to what was going to be said to them. So I don't think people really understand the level of preparation. What I had a witness said, a female witness said to me one time. She said, when I had a baby, I had a C-section. She's telling me, I'm like, why? She says, so it was a very strange environment. I'm on this bed, they're wheeling me in, big bright room, all kinds of people there, and I'm like sort of scared, how is this going to happen? It was a very sterile environment. Everybody's looking at me. She said, and then, they put me out, and then I come to and it's over, basically. She said, walking into that courtroom felt like that first part of that, she said, it felt like I did when I was going into some place I didn't know what it was going to be like. It was bright. There's all kinds of people. She says, but the difference is, once I ask your questions, it's not over. I had to sit there and be cross-examined. Tried to humiliate me. She said, so it was a very, very scary experience.
Yeah.
And, part of our job was to prepare people for that,
Yeah.
so they knew what they're going to be dealing with.
Well, Greg, Convergence, I can't wait to read it. Sure it's going to be such an interesting book because this article, I mean, what I've read of it has been great. And of course, having you on here is such an interesting story. Do you have any other books that you're working on now?
Yeah, sure. We're doing something unique too. We've got a planned a series of 5 books. Each of them, I'm involved in the cases. Okay, my partner and
Okay.
I. And the next book is called Pursuing Kings. And
Oh,
the story is about the most vicious gang that ever roamed the streets of Chicago, called the Royal Family.
wow.
And what had happened was, when we started this trial, the newspapers got onto it, and they ran a full-page story about this gang. And the headline was, The royal family are the kings of killing. So that's why our book is called Pursuing Kings.
Wow, it's a great title.
I mean, there's two parts of that. There's a triple murder. They were actually a gang of hitmen for the mafia in Chicago.
Wow.
And they would go around the country and they would kill people. They started out as street gang members, and then when they were in prison, they met members of the Chicago mob, and they came up with this plan. They were black, and they thought if these guys ever got stopped, they would never link them to the mob, and there was a whole strategy. And so they began doing contract killings, besides just killing the drug dealers.
Yeah.
And so the case begins in Chicago, a triple murder, but then we end up finding out they did a contract killing in Arizona. So the next book will be about how that unfolded. So
wow.
There was actually a TV series, a 3-night miniseries in Arizona a couple years ago called The Last Hitman, and it talks about these two cases.
Oh, wow. Wow, that sounds really interesting, too.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be very interesting, and what we went through. I had been appointed shortly after this case. The new state's attorney was Richard Daley.
Yeah.
For some unknown reason, he appointed me to be the first chief of gang prosecutions.
Wow.
So my career became running a unit that went after street gangs, which we actually had posters that they had printed said, this is the moron gangs. I mean, it got a little violent. They put some contracts out on me, which wasn't too nice.
Yeah.
But that's what this book is. It's a book about, how I had even transitioned again from a regular trial attorney in a courtroom to being a gang prosecutor and leading a unit of people that became gang prosecutors.
Wow. So when will that book be coming out?
That should be out, I'd say by January. We're over halfway through.
Okay.
But then, we got to write the other half, and then you have to edit it. It's just a process. So, it'll be good.
Yeah.
I'll make sure you get a few chapters. We've got some stuff done already, so I'll make sure I can get you some of the beginning chapters of this new book.
Yeah, I can't wait. And everyone, please go check out and buy Convergence. It's available Amazon, just pretty much wherever you find your books, correct?
Yeah, and if they want to know even more about the background, my background, and the cases and some other things, I've got a website, Greg Owen 26, GregOwen26th.com. In my Instagram handle was Greg Owen 26 too.
Yeah, your website's great. It's really interesting. I was checking it out, and even some pictures of you when you were a rock star in there as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because people sometimes they think, "Is this guy for real?" And I really was that. I really did that.
Well, Greg, it's been an honor chatting with you, and maybe we'll have you back when the next book comes out and talk about it.
I look forward to it. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I mean, you have a great show, and you do a good job, and I felt really lucky to be on your show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Okay, you take care.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye. That concludes my podcast on the murders on Sheridan Road. A special thank you to Greg Owens for joining us to talk about his book. Once again, it's called Convergence and is available where you buy your books. His website is 26streetbooks.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating or review where you listen to your podcasts. You can find me on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and YouTube Music under one word, Lost and Found Podcast. You can read all of my original articles as well as find links to my most recent podcasts on my website at Lost and Found Blogs. I also have social media pages under that name on Facebook, X, and Instagram. I have a Patreon channel where I cover lesser-known missing persons cases that you may have never heard of. You can reach me via email at lostandfoundpodcast@yahoo. And remember that cold cases stay cold because their story stops getting told.